Yeah, man. So resiliency training for the athlete, huh?
Resiliency training and the idea of the mindset.
And the idea of the mindset. Elaborate.
Well, I mean, let's just look at it from like one specific example. You give someone a like 1x15 squat.
Okay.
What kind of mindset do you need to be able to finish that out?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's just like I'm probably gonna be going through rep ranges. I'm gonna be like 1 through 6. I'm like, all right, we're good. And then 7 through 8 or 9, I'll be like, wow, we're tired. 10 through 11 is like, I don't have 4 more. And then you resiliate the last 4 reps. You take it very seriously. It's like you're doing a top set of 4 those last 4 reps.
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of people they'll get to the very end.
Yeah.
And then they quit.
They just stop. Like they feel misgroove and they just don't want to get hurt until they quit, or they're like, it's hard, I don't want to do it. It's like,
when in actuality, it's like if you have a spot, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, if you have a spot, you just got to go for it. Why would you not? You know.
And like quitting and not letting yourself be able to grind a rep, I think you're missing out on a huge aspect of just like strength sports in general.
Yeah.
I've told you this before. I think the ability to grind a rep in strength sports is a skill that not a lot of people learn.
No, they fly through the lifts all the time, but then when they get met with that little bit of gravity and adversity, they're just like, oh, they get scared, you know.
That little bit of resistance.
You gotta learn to like, you know, push through that, you know, like
Exactly.
It's not as scary as it actually is.
I think it was it's like an old West Side thing, but the Louis talks about he like timed all the third attempts.
Oh, really?
And the average was 3 seconds. So if you can grind longer than 3 seconds,
You're good.
you're usually better off in like your competition.
It's like the martial artists that practice longer and train harder than an actual match would be. That way, like, no matter what happens, they'll be fine.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean,
it's in theory.
in theory, I mean, that's what you should do. You should train hard enough that, like,
Power to me, it's not hard.
Yeah.
I hope not.
I mean, I see that in strongman. Like, you know, in strongman, you know what the weights are.
Yeah.
Train hard enough that you can be able to do those weights.
Right. No, I think a good example was like you were benching one day, and it was just something I wasn't brought up with. It was like, oh, he's about to fail. Help him out. You know, just take it.
Yeah.
And then you were telling me afterwards, like, no, I like to grind through it. You know, I like to feel the grind, even if I'm failing. Just don't yank it out of my hands. Just let me push through it. And then I think we did that a couple next sets or in the next week, and I was like, this makes sense. Like, it really does, because like that's probably not going to be as taxing as like if you actually grind it out a full rep, like me helping you a little bit. It's but like you have that time under tension now. Like you know exactly what's going on in those times, and it's not going to feel as long in your head.
And like just knowing that I'm like fighting for the rep is like a huge thing.
Yeah.
And like over time, because I still remember like for myself personally, I used to give up. Excuse me. I used to give up on bench quite a lot.
Really? Okay.
And then I had a training partner that would never let me quit. He stopped yanking the bar. He would just barely touch it. And even if the bar wasn't moving, he still wasn't going to help.
Yeah.
He was going to make me fight. I've had benches without a spot that have lasted like over 10 seconds.
Dang, dude.
I think my longest rep was like 13 seconds.
But like that's just, would you say that builds up confidence too? Like you're just like, you're going through the rep, you know, 5 seconds ago, but like, I still got this.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You're trying your hardest. You're like, there's no reason I don't get this. You know,
like I think you've heard me. I have a bad habit of saying I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, because I don't want anyone to grab the bar.
I got it. Yeah. It's like you're locked out, dude. I know you got it.
And it's like, because I'm like at the very end and I'm like, it's taking forever, but just let me have this.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I know when to spot when somebody's about to grind it out, but like when you failed that one day, like it just straight up went down and I took it. You know, like you said, if I would have just snagged it on the descent and let you fight for the rest of the way, you get something out of it versus just like, oh, nope. Fuck.
I mean, and there is a difference between someone who just like fails, versus
well, like yours wasn't like you misgrooved in your elbows. It's now going towards your belly now. It's like you just like it started going down, and I just took it.
And the ability to grind a rep, I think, is huge.
Oh, dude, I remember reading up when I first got into powerlifting. There's like all these West Side articles, and like I think that's how they explained the stimulus of max effort. It was your ability to strain. You know, can you strain under this weight, and then you just have to learn to strain under heavier weight. And a lot of the maybe there were some days where you had to grind those days. Like I think it was like their overload days where like that top end just sucks. Like that was that grind, that strain training versus like just moving the weight as fast as possible.
That's that RPE idea is like, you know, a 9.
Yeah.
That should be the grind.
Yeah, like that shit was a 9 until I hit the last inch at the top, and then it became a 10.
But like hitting that part where you're learning to grind for more than a few seconds, I think it will benefit you, because it's too easy to just, I mean, we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
You hit that resistance and you just want to stop. You just want to give up.
I know, like, as a newer lifter, whenever I hit a misgroove, I would want to I just didn't want to go. Like, I was like scared of pain or scared of injury. Or failure. It could just be a fear of failure too. It's like, well, I'm not finna fail this squat, so I'm just gonna drop it. You know, a lot of people just drop their squats really fast. But for me, it was a fear of injury. I didn't want to get hurt. So like, if I was to misgroove or if the bar wasn't moving as fast, I'd just give up. And it's like, fuck. But I slowly got better at like, you know what? No matter, it was like one rep. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna fail this no matter what. And I didn't fail it, but it was like a 10-second rep. And so it was a squat rep. It's like, you know what? You have to grind. You know, just don't stop. Why would I stop?
I think squat's the big one.
Mm-hmm. It's such an uncomfortable lift. I mean, at least from like the drug tested standpoint, where like you have to walk it out. It's on your back. You got to walk with it. It's moving on your back. It's heavy, but you can still make it move fast though. You know, squat's such a mental resilience and self.
The mental toughness, I think, in squat is like the one that will set you apart. Deadlift, you can just drop it. Bench, you usually have a spot. You can just rest it.
Or it's not as strainful. Sorry, not as strainful. It's not strainful because, is this good still?
You can keep it close.
Okay. But because it's all upper body, you know, your whole system isn't going through as much of a shock as it would on a squat or deadlift. But on squat, man, even a monolift, you got to pick it. You got to hold it for a second. Then you got to squat it. And it's on your back the whole time. You're moving through a plane of motion while this thing's trying to crush you.
Jeremy told me a long time ago. I don't remember the exact statistic he said, but he said like every 9 out of 10 times somebody fails on a squat, it's because of their mental.
Yeah, I believe that, man.
You can usually, if you pick up the weight, and you can usually get it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't know if you can tell. You can tell when somebody picks up the weight if they're going to get it.
Oh yeah, you start noticing
you can notice
mannerisms.
The confidence going into it with that intent. I think is like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
If you go into it picking it up and not having intent, not keeping your body tight, and you're being, what is that called? Like
scared.
You're
scared.
Being scared. You're just
you have a lack of confidence. You don't trust yourself with this weight.
But if you go into it with that intent of like, I know I'm going to get this, of like having that confidence, you're usually going to get it.
Oh, dude, a good example right now is like my deadlift. You know, I'm kind of building back from that back injury, and every week my back feels better and better, less painful. But like starting out, like 3 reds was scary. I would hesitate into it. I'm up to like where 4 reds, I'm kind of going into it full bore now.
Yeah.
But you saw the 550 today, where I was like, it's just a little iffy. I'm still just finding that threshold, trying to get a little bit more comfortable, you know. And a lot of people don't have that confidence even approaching the bar. It's just, you set yourself up for failure.
That's what I told you. I could see it because that first rep, I was like, why'd
you hesitate? And I wasn't even noticing. It's like, thank you. You know, I needed somebody to tell me that, like, you are scared.
Yeah.
You're being a baby right now.
Because it looked like a clean rep. I mean, it was a clean rep.
Well,
everything was fine, but you hesitated.
It could have been so much better if I had that confidence, though. And I still had it on the second rep where, like, I was a little hesitant. And if I would have just sent it, you know, Ed Cohn's old thing was, like, be 100% when you need to be 100%. Don't be yelling, screaming, and kicking all over the place just to fail a lift. You know, save that for when you're in position and you let it all out on the ascent, on the deadlift, you know. So I just get so antsy, especially with deadlift. Squat and bench, I'm really confident with. And deadlift is just like, it's always this mental battle.
It's always that first back injury.
Yeah.
Because I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, pinched a nerve, and then it was like, I mean, it was my own damn fault. I was deadlifting wrong. But then coming back from that, it took like, there was always that hesitation. Yeah. Like, I was scared every single time. And eventually you just kind of have to like mentally just be like,
just
whatever.
Gotta get over it.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's always been a back thing. You know, I've never had a knee or hip problem, but like my back has always been the one that goes out, and it never hurts on squat. It always hurts deadlift initially, and I'm like, what is going on? And so it always comes back, and when I go through it, it's good, and then I'll come back and deadlift something big, and then a couple months later I'll get hurt, and it's like probably just because I'm going too hard. pushing deadlifts too hard or something like that, you know. But I mean, like for bench, the grind on bench is a little bit scarier just because like you thinking about it's in your hands directly. You know, you have your back on your squat and deadlift, like you say, you can just drop it, but it's over your face. I don't want to fail this. I'm just gonna push it, and then you see all these like videos of people like pec tears or the bar dropping on. You know, bench is scary. That weight is over your face.
I know it's like it's almost like a silly thing to say, but you kind of have to go into every lift knowing that there's a risk.
There's always, I mean, that's when you drive a car on the road, you gotta know that there's a stupid driver out there. That's the risk you take.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, this shouldn't have happened. I'm driving today. It's like, no, that's not how this works. You know, when you got behind the wheel and started the car, you signed a contract. Like you will react and be ready for whatever happens on this road now.
Yeah.
No matter if it's somebody jaywalking at night without a vest on or whether somebody runs a red light. That was the contract you signed. You got to be ready for this. And so getting under barbell, it's like, I'm ready for, you know, like something might happen. I'm not scared of that though. And that's another resiliency thing. It's like, you got to know something bad might happen, but it's just like you can push through that. You're not scared of that. And I think confidence and resiliency go hand in hand most of the time. And so, I mean, how many times like in strongman, like somebody's doing a farmer's carry and like there's some guy that's super strong, super athlete, and then this might go into grip strength maybe, but like he just drops the bar too early. And then there's some guy that's not as strong as him, just like he hasn't hit, I'm not going to drop it. And he just pushes through it.
There is a big difference when you have that mindset. And I think specifically with grip strength.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Grip strength is a good test of like your mental resilience.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you can fail something like on a grip test.
Mm-hmm.
Say you're just doing like a fat grip,
yeah,
like pick. You can fail it. You could fail it. But if you just get your mindset right, you can pick it up.
It's like instantly better.
I remember a specific time we were trying to see. It was like a farmer's carry with a fat grip,
mm-hmm.
and we were trying to see how heavy we can go. And I remember I hit this wall super hard, and I was like, I couldn't even get it off the ground. I was like, what the hell? And everybody else was still going up,
mm-hmm.
and it made me mad. Like I got
you got so mad you didn't even think about it. You're like, I got to wrap this thing.
And then like I just went into it with such intent and
yes.
such like that mental like I'm just gonna pick it up. I don't give a shit. And when I grabbed it, it flew. And then we went up, it flew. It went up, it flew. It went up, it flew.
Yeah.
And I put another 40 pounds on from what I failed 5 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of that was just the mental aspect of it.
Oh, dude. I mean, even in the big three, maybe not as much as squat because it kind of just hangs on your back and hands, but like bench and deadlift for sure. Like just having that I don't care what happens. I'm going to grab the hell out of this thing and just rip it. You know, that builds so much more stability or like more connection to the bar, especially for deadlift, obviously, being such a grip component. But bench, like the bar's sitting in a part of your hand where it wants to open you up. You know, so like you squeeze out that thing, everything just gets connected. Everything just falls into place. But deadlift, like if your hands are just a little limp and you just there's the whole like let your arms hang kind of thing. But like if you just like limp and there's no connection, your legs and body can only do so much. But like you put like an active grip on that thing and you have that mind where like, I'm not going to drop this. I'm going to push as hard as I can. All of a sudden your deadlift increases by like 20 pounds.
I think
grip is so crazy with how it can change that.
Grip and intent, I think, really go hand in hand.
Oh, dude. Yes.
Like the more, like if you go into something and you grip the shit out of it and you're squeezing really hard, your mind is already telling you like.
Oh, dude, that's the first thing when I think of intent. I think of squeezing something hard. You know, like.
Yeah.
If I fail a bench, it's like, well, I didn't try hard enough. You know what that probably means? I probably just wasn't gripping the bar hard.
Well, think about you ever done like Captains of Crush?
Yeah.
You know when it starts getting really heavy.
And you're like, oh, I got to try.
And then you can feel your entire body. You're gripping one little thing, but you feel your entire body start tightening up because you're trying really hard. It's almost like my jaw will start to get tight. My neck will start to get tight.
It connects.
Your whole chest gets messed up, man. Your left hand starts squeezing too. Your legs start tightening
you see those
up.
People with those things and they start squeezing down. It's like you see their whole body just going. Yeah. It's crazy, dude. I mean, grip is such an essential part. I mean, obviously we talked about like connections, like longevity and stuff, but like in terms of like you want to see what somebody's really made of, just like give them a grip strength challenge and just let them see what they can do.
Yeah.
And if they just drop it because like, oh, it got hard, okay. But like somebody like Jerry, he probably would never. He'd probably fall over before, and then
He
still
would-
be holding onto the bar.
Yeah, he'd be willing to die for it.
Exactly. So it's like, and that you can't teach that. You know.
But the thing is, I think with a grip test, you can teach someone that mental toughness.
yeah,
Because you can apply that. You could be like, see, you were able to close it.
yeah.
Now do that on a
Well,
deadlift.
with like a, let's say like a grip holding challenge, you know, like we talked about with deadlift, or with deadlift, it's easy because you can just drop it. Cool. Let's pick up a 315 deadlift and just hold it for as long as you can. And it's like, oh, it's hard. Well, you could just drop it, but you could tell when somebody just can't hold it anymore. Like their hands start opening up, and
Yeah.
when it's in their fingertips and they're still holding on, like that's resilient. That
That's
guy
you will see that in strongmen a lot.
yeah, like it's in their finger. It's like I'm not gonna let this go. If it falls, it falls, but I'm not gonna be the reason why it falls. You know.
Exactly.
And so I think that's such an essential thing for grip, man.
It just teaches you that mental toughness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a way to train mental toughness is your grip.
Oh, for sure.
Because when your forearms start burning, for some reason it's easy. It's easy to open your hand.
Oh, it's the easiest thing ever. Even when there's something heavy in your hand, you can just let go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what it's made to do. It's made to do this.
But for some reason too, grip is an interesting one because people will try extra hard.
yeah,
I don't know if you've noticed
because
that.
I think it's easy. Like I said with the deadlift, and like first of the squat, it's on your back and it kind of you can't breathe, and now your blood pressure's on your head. Deadlift, you can just let go. A lot of people can push deadlift harder though because like if I fail, I'm not getting hurt. I can just drop the bar.
Yeah.
So with the grip train, it's like I'm not gonna let go. It's so easy for me to let go. I'm not going to though.
But it's like allows people to be like, okay, this is what trying feels like.
Yeah.
Without the risk of like, oh, I might hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because all I have to do is just squeeze as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like a competitive thing, but you pull a gripper out in front of like a group of
Some
guys,
dudes in there just going at it.
they will all see who's the strongest.
Like even like the nonchalant friend, he's like, "Give me that."
Yeah, they will all just try their hardest. And
Uh-huh.
I think you need to apply that intent when you're just lifting in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I think it's a skill that you have to learn.
It's a skill. I mean, I know like at least back at school it was always like competition, and it's harder. It's not like you're racing somebody in a foot race. You know, like you're lifting weights. It's pretty objective. There's numbers. You're obviously stronger than the guy, but like who can finish their rep? Even if I'm going up against a guy that squats more than me, who can finish their set of 5 faster? So we just who can nail it faster, you know, like who can go faster, and that drives intent, you know. And all of a sudden now your set of 5 is like super light because you're trying harder, you know. So
I think that comes with the competitive mindset, which
Yes.
not everybody has.
no, and I agree what you're saying though. Like grip strength can kind of teach that because you're competing against yourself. Like
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's like I could let go anytime, but I'm not going to, you know. That you're competing against yourself at least, and that's such an essential part for being an athlete.
But having that competitive mindset is what allows you to have that intent or just be like that resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have that, if you're not willing to like, you know, risk something.
Do you think the athletic mindset's like a accepting of challenge? You know, it's just like I don't care. I mean, some people might be like that's the warrior mindset or something, but like an athletic mindset, like there's a bigger, stronger opponent, or there's something I just simply can't do or hold on to. I'm gonna do it anyway, at my best. You know, do you think that's the athletic
I
mindset?
think to a certain point, but that reminds me of like something that we've talked about where it's like Blake and I have talked about it, where it's like we have this idea in our head, and it's like once you have that idea in your head, there's no doubt that we will reach it.
Right.
And so like even as far fetched as something like for me, I want to squat 1,000. It's like in my mind, I'm like, I'm not putting any doubt in my mind. I'm not. There's nothing in my mind that says like I'm not going to be able to do that. It's just a matter of when I'm going to do.
Right.
And it's like, do you have that same kind of idea with like anything? Like
Me?
Yeah.
No, but it's not me disagreeing with you guys at all, though. I love what y'all did, what y'all say. Like, I'm going to be the first guy. I know Blake's like, be the first guy, I think, to squat 1,000 at under 220. You just have, I want to squat 1,000 pounds, you know, and that's totally sick. Like, I don't have anything like that. My thing is just like, I'll give my all every day, no matter how tired I am, you know, and some people just need, they need those numbers to get them to that side.
I see.
But like for me, it's just like, I don't care where I end up as long as I give my best effort in anything I do. It's all I need for that reinforcement.
Well, I think something that rang true with me when I actually first started at American Iron.
Mm-hmm.
I had an interview with Jeremy, and Jeremy, he asked me a bunch of hard questions. And one of the questions he asked me was like, he said, "Do you want to be the best?" And I was like, I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because it would be hard to balance coaching, life, and being the best." And then he told me, he's like, "That doesn't mean you can't be the best."
Right.
He's like, "Don't ever put yourself in a box."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Don't ever think that you can't do something." And for some reason, just like that hit. And it's like, I wasn't even working here yet.
You know, that hit me too. I wasn't even thinking about that either. Like, don't put yourself in a box like that. I was like, dang, dude, that's wild,
Like,
actually.
yeah, and I'm just having an interview
Yeah.
for the job, and he's telling me don't.
He's interviewing. He's interviewing me. Why is he telling me this?
Yeah, and he's telling me that I need to like never let myself be in a box. And for some reason, ever since then, it was like, okay.
So
like,
how did you interpret that? Like, do you want to be the best? How do you get? Oh, I can't be the best because of this, and that. And it's just like you're holding yourself back in that box because because of external factors, or just because of you thinking you can't.
Well, I had this. I was trying to think in like realistic terms instead of being like more optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when you start thinking personally, I think when you start thinking, and you can think realistically, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but when you start setting up those parameters of like, oh, I can only do this, you're closing doors.
Mm-hmm.
You're not leaving those doors open for other things.
Right.
And so like, I think adopting that mindset of I can do this will apply to other parts of your life.
No, I completely agree. So going back to like when you asked me if I have like a number or something in my head, I don't have a number, but having that I would give my best in everything. It started in athletics and it's leaked into my life, you know, like whether it's building platforms or running meets or even creating a spreadsheet, I put my everything into those until I fall asleep or until the job's done. You know, and so having that, you have that mindset of like, I want to squat this. I want to be the best coach I could possibly. I just want to be the best coach. You know, it doesn't matter. But now, other things in your life, how can this help me achieve that goal? You know, like, well, to be a good coach, I got to be a good athlete, and to be a good athlete, I have to understand not just the physical but mental aspect, and then that leaks into like, well, if I'm going to be a good athlete with a good mental aspect, I need to have a good diet or have a good external, you know, habits. So now it literally leaks into everything, and so I think having like, whether it's a objective goal as like a number to squat or subjective, like I will do the best, because mine's like pure subjective, like what is my best, you know, that changes every day. Depends on how much energy or effort I can put into that day, but at least I gave it.
I think too, it's like, so for instance, it's like, you know, it's not just like the number for me, it's just the idea that,
No, I mean,
because it's like for bench,
mm-hmm.
I have like no doubt in my mind I'll bench 500 raw.
Mm-hmm.
For deadlift, I have no doubt in my mind I'll like deadlift 800 raw.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it almost feels like if you put any arbitrary number, to a certain extent, if you said 1,500 pound deadlift,
I
I'd
know
be
what
like,
you're saying,
no.
yeah.
But if you put like, it just seems like it's always realistic and it's always there. And I didn't have that mindset before until like Jeremy literally like, it was just such a turning point in I think my entire life.
I think for me, why I don't have a number is because I already hit my goal. Like if a doctor told me I can't powerlift tomorrow, I'd be happy. Like I'd benched 4 plates, squat and deadlifted over 6. That's all I ever wanted. It's like, well, that's it for me. You know, like now it's like, well, I don't really want to put another number and limit myself, because I think that's what I did, was limit myself. And that's just how my mind works. And so I was just like, you know what? I'll just do the best I can. Now I'm up to the numbers I never would have thought about being up to. You know, so it's just like, wow, well, let's just not put a limit on it. Let's see how far we can get this thing going. And then whenever that day comes, I'm happy, no matter what happens.
So why don't you set up something else?
What do you mean?
Set up like it doesn't have to be a number, but like another goal that's like you can think you can achieve.
Oh, so like top 5 at nationals or something like that, or like,
yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Oh no, it's just I've thought about that kind of stuff. It's like I think that would make me hungrier, but in the end, at the end of it all, when I start training, it's like it makes me beat myself up more. It's like, well, I'm never going to beat. Now I'm comparing myself, and so it's like, for me, it's hard to find a goal unless you can come up with one. It's hard for me to find a goal that only involves like something I could put on myself. Like I said, something like a number is okay, but I can't let that number be the judge of if I'm doing things right or if I'm happy or not. You know, And that's just that, like that's just how my mind works. It's like
I see. Because I don't
because when you're not squatting 1,000 pounds, you're not necessarily unhappy. You know,
I'm just not doing it yet.
you're just not doing it yet. Where for me, it's like you're a failure.
Okay.
You suck.
I
And
see.
so, and that just might be a clash of minds. You know, that's just all that is. And so, if I was to say I want to squat 661, well, I squat 661 now. Do I just make another goal? Was I happy when I did it? Was I happy the whole process? You know, like was that really what I needed? Versus like that just the plain effort. Like what do I need to put in today to be better? You know, it's just that constant improvement is all.
I guess it's that internal thing. It reminds me of like another thing, like the reason why I pick like a big goal.
Mhm.
It's like I don't necessarily feel like, I still have other smaller goals.
Right.
But I remember I had an old training partner, Gordon.
Mhm.
I told him one time, I forgot what I told him, and I was like, I made a joke, and I was like, if I reach for the moon, if I miss, I'll land in the stars.
Land amongst stars, yeah.
And he told me, he looked at me and like paused, and he was like, why the fuck would you reach for the moon when there's a bunch of planets
When there's a
out
whole
there?
universe out
Yeah,
there.
and I was
You're
like,
God.
and I was like, oh, I was like,
You put
I-
yourself in that box again.
yeah, I was like, I guess I just put myself in the box again. Like,
Hell yeah.
I was like, that makes perfect sense. But it's like, it's just sayings and ideas. But
Yeah.
it's like it's just applying that like that belief system.
Yeah. So for me, what helped me like with motivation and just discipline in general is like I put other people on my back, even if they aren't on my back. But like, let's say there's a sports team, it's like I have to be good for these guys to succeed. I'm a part of their success, and that might just be a self-sacrifice kind of thing. Like, and that's where it's kind of where it started. Like, my feelings and happiness don't matter. Whatever gets these people to succeed is what matters, And so, I mean, when it comes to like when it comes to like the gym or something, it's like for this gym to be better, we need everybody to be better. I think you, Blake, and Tamara and Bob are like the big guys. If I can help y'all rise, a rising tide raises all boats. So, and yeah, there's your weakest link. You're only as weak as your weakest link, but if
Only
you're
as strong as your weakest.
only as strong as your weakest link. But if your weakest link is still striving for the top end, I think that adds so much to a team as well. And so, like I said, a rising tide raises all boats. And if I can make sure all these big battleships, if I do my maintenance stuff, y'all aren't stressed about putting racks together or light bulbs. If y'all can actually focus on like big stuff in the gym, I think that helps the gym and that it can elevate y'all higher too.
But I mean, that's also the belief system that you should always make sure everybody else is doing good too.
Always.
That doesn't take away from your own personal goals. I mean, that could be
And it used to, but it doesn't. I've seen it as I hate to use the word purpose in life, but I see the purpose of my life as being a helper, a fixer, kind of. I come in, I help y'all do what you gotta do, and it's just happened naturally in life too. I come in, I do something, the thing's cool, I get moved somewhere else all of a sudden.
Well, it almost seems like because you're content. I don't know if that's like the best word, but because you have that belief system, it almost translates to your training, because then you're like, it's easier for you to train.
Yeah.
It's easier for you to do good because you're not worried about other stuff.
No, exactly. It's just taking care of all the other factors and just like, oh, well, I can put my hardest effort into training now, So,
Like, you don't use training necessarily as a way to escape.
no.
Training is just training.
Training for me is a way to build character. I've built my whole life around sports, and so I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm gonna find another thing like fishing or something. I found that sports is my medium into building character and, lack of better terms, enlightenment. And so like I use sport to learn these life lessons, whether it's grinding, resiliency, or even just like learning to like start small and build up. And that there are times where you need to probably just send it. Those are all learned through sport and through team and being on a team. And whether the team is an official sports team or a team member of this gym, that's just how I learned it. And so that's how I kind of connect things.
And so that's what you use as like the mindset,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh, yeah.
And you apply it to everything else.
Like, why did I get into cooking lately? It's not because I want to make better food. I can eat slop 24/7. I don't care. But one day I plan on meeting a woman, having a kid, and I want them to be like, yeah, that's the best cook I know. You know, like one day my kid's gonna want to go to a date, and it's like, Dad, well, how do I dress? Well, now I need to learn fashion. You know, like none of this is for me. It's for me. Maybe if it's like, it's I want everybody else to succeed more than I've succeeded, and I'm not saying I came from anywhere bad at all, but I think if I'm doing good, everyone else can be better. And
I
it's
mean,
just
there's
like,
still the self validation there.
yes, and I'm not like saying like I'm worthless. I'm not saying that at all. I think I have lots of worth, and that took a lot of time for me to tackle. So it's like I'm not worthless. I have purpose. I have this thing, and although maybe the purpose is to help others, you know, I have to be the best for them and for myself. And if I'm good for myself, then I can help others. I can't help others if I'm not my best self. So there's times where I have to step back and like I have to focus on me because that's what's best for everyone sometimes. So
Interesting.